Hi there! If you know me from a small catalog of videos on my main YouTube channel, of the overview of my Reddit account, you'll know that I like the Kirby series a fair amount and enjoy talking about all of its interesting topics. Today's video in particular was conceived a long time ago, but I ultimately decided to work on it sooner rather than later, thanks in no small part to another video made by YouTuber DExus. That thing is 8 months old, jeez. If you have never heard of the DExus show, either you're lying or haven't kept up with the last 5 years of the Kirby fandom. DExus made a wide range of Nintendo themed content, but most of his videos are about Kirby. His most recent one has been about quite a peculiar and, shall I say, controversial topic among fans of the series. Can Kirby, the puffball we all know and love, talk? Can he actually speak full sentences? Now, he's already gone over a few official pieces of media, canon or not, and came to a pretty satisfying conclusion, and also I have reacted to it on my PC and intend to keep the files there, thank you. But we can do better. As a Kirby hero of lore, citation not needed, I decided to put my 2 cents into this topic. So today we're going to talk about more evidence, address the other side of the argument, and hopefully provide a way for both sides to peacefully coincide. Chapter 1. The 90s. To begin our journey, I'd like to ask you one simple question. When was the first time that Kirby talked? You may point your finger at some obscure piece of media that barely anyone knows about, or a bizarre manga that never left Japan. But nope. The first time he spoke is arguably as old as the series itself. Kirby's Dream Land released in 1992, and with it, quite a few different instruction manuals for different regions. You see, back when the internet barely existed, if at all, you couldn't look up let's plays of your favorite games. Instead, with the games came a manual that would explain the plot of the game, the main characters, their abilities, enemies, and whatnot. And it's here where Kirby will say his first words. Don't worry, I'll get your food and your sparkling stuffs back. By the 5th page of the manual, you get to read the way you control the main character, the enemies you have to defeat, how you can throw toters, the items and the game stages, all explained in excruciating detail by Kirby himself. Some of his lines are even said in a speech bubble next to one of his renders. Needless to say, this is quite a novelty, especially for his first game. The Japanese one doesn't seem to have any line that Kirby himself says, assuming you understand Japanese, but even still, it's interesting how they made the choice of making a character talk about the game they're in their debut game. You don't see that with Mario or Donkey Kong in their classic or recent games, so having Kirby of all people do that is almost bizarre. And you may think that's the only time he speaks in one of the manuals, but no, that's not a one-time thing. Sure, he doesn't explain what you do in his games in other manuals, but that was never going to happen again. He has a description in the Dreamland 3 manual in first person, where he talks about how his homeland is under attack, and with the help of his new friend, he'll save it again. And apparently he was lucky enough to have one line in Tilt and Tumble, in the pages that explain the plot. No stars in the sky? What's going on? He also has a few lines inside speech bubbles, but I don't think Kirby is really talking there. An interesting case is Kirby's Adventures manual where, get this, in the middle of the plot synopsis, Kirby and King Dedede have a conversation. And it's not a Stewie can't be understood by X kind of conversation. The two have a natural back and forth. It's worth noting that this conversation is also present in the Japanese manual. However, the way it goes is a little different. He refers to the king with a rude you, the Japanese language is pretty complex, and telling him literally to shut up. I bring this up because of an article I found out 2 years ago that claimed Kirby used to be rude back in the day because of those things, along with Ghost Trap and that German comic. And he's talking to a self-proclaimed ruler here, not Obama. Besides, he deserved it for stealing all of the food 2 days prior. But with the manuals, I'm just scratching the surface when it comes to instances where Kirby can talk. You thought Kirby speaking properly with DDD was crazy? You haven't seen anything yet. Mangas aren't uncommon for popular brands made in Japan. In fact, it'd be hard to find one that doesn't have at least 2 issues. Mario has Super Mario-kun, Zelda has countless titles made by Akira Himekawa, Yu Mishokaze, Ataru Kagiwa. Heck, Wanpaku Comics made a manga to go along with the first game in the series. Kirby also has its own share of mangas, most of which never got officially localized. Kirby of the Stars Moretsu Pupupu, however, is perhaps the most popular in the fanbase. And if I were a simpleton, I would say it's the earliest Kirby manga to be serialized, next to the story of DDD who lives in Pupupu. But as it turns out, an article on the Japanese Kirby Wiki shows books that were made a lot earlier. Special thanks to pay outs to Kirby Iceberg videos for spreading awareness of these books. They're really interesting. Again, it goes as early as 1992, with a collection of mangas made by Ryoko Sakura, targeted towards 1st to 3rd graders, that follows a quite mischievous portrayal of Kirby and all the other characters from Kirby's Dreamland. He seems to be able to talk there, but the wiki article about it claims that his language is very childish. We also get to learn about how he was born. Apparently, it was given birth with the help of a star-shaped flower. The other earliest Kirby manga is this weird-looking one by Abe Sayori, that's also for 1st graders. Although this one has only Kirby and King Dedede as characters returning from the game. The other ones are either made up or variations of official characters, like Black Kirby, not Shadow Kirby. This manga is so obscure that it's almost bordering on being lost media. We only have about 15 images of these supposed issues, and after hearing about their plots, maybe it's for the better. There's one issue where, I can't believe I'm saying this, Kirby has to go to the toilet, but gets somehow transformed into one. Then Black Kirby pretends to be regular Kirby for the rest of the story. Amazing. In case I sound a little weird today, it's because while I'm recording I have both a cough and also a stuffed nose, so that's fun. In 2021 we got the announcement that one of those mangas will finally be localized into proper English. It's kinda sad that what we ended up getting was far from ideal. Kirby Manga Mania is a collection of stories from 1995's The Story of Dedede Who Lives in Pupupu. The first volume was released on the 8th of June, and the collection is still going to this day, now on its 8th volume. So there we have it, a localized manga where Kirby speaks in every scene he's in. There is just one small problem, and it's not the way he speaks, but the way he's portrayed. Kirby in this manga is completely unhinged. He gets drunk at a party he isn't invited to, destroys King Dedede's castle, breaks a furry robot version of himself with his singing, although he tries to make it up to Dedede for a while, makes his own country, joins forces with Tutajkk, literally inhales the reader in one chapter, and that's just the first 3 volumes. Oh, and he also says "Popper" of people a lot, which is really jarring if you're used to his other catchphrase. While Kirby is still portrayed as a kid with a heart and is obviously the hero of the books, there are quite a lot of moments where he lets his obliviousness and mischievousness get the best of him. Obviously there are ones where Kirby feels more like his game counterpart, like Moretsu Pupupu Hour of the 4-panel theater retelling of Kirby 64. And yes, Kirby talks in almost, if not, all of this. He's also there in the Club Nintendo German comics. I'm not listing the Detective Kirby duology for obvious reasons, but I think we should at least acknowledge the ones where he's paired with Link and Mario, or even the A Christmas Carol adaptation featuring Wario and Scrooge. But while these cases are certainly nice to learn and talk about, there's one common problem with them. We can't hear how Kirby sounds, only imagine it. That's too little, we want to hear his voice. Was his voice already cute in the 90s, or did these former voice actors go for a different approach? Worry not, cause we have a lot of obscure media where we can hear Kirby's voice that nobody cares but us! Well, okay, first of all, I want to address this really obscure piece of Kirby trivia. Around the time Kirby's Adventure released in Japan, an official phone line was released in a December issue of the Japanese educational magazine Second Grade, giving children and adults of all ages a chance to talk to Kirby himself. Well, they could usually talk to him for only a minute and that was that, but still. Unfortunately, the service was discontinued pretty quickly and nobody has archived any of those calls. Neither on YouTube, nor Nico Nico Doga. The only way we know of this is because of these two images, a post made by former Kirby Live Radio chatter Poyostar, and of course, the ultimate Kirby iceberg video by Pikachu. But we still have a few instances of Kirby videos and audio of him talking, so let's discuss them. Two examples include the Japanese commercials for Kirby's Adventure and Pinball Land. Both start with some surprisingly catchy songs, a Japanese man briefly talking about the game, and ending it with a line from Kirby himself. And the actress behind these lines is still a mystery, however. She definitely isn't Maki Koromoto, nor does she sound like any other actress we'll hear later. But most people have collectively agreed that it's probably some Japanese employee who wanted to voice him just because. Even more obscure are the promo videos about these two games. From what I understand, Japanese gamers would go to a game store, and among the games, they would be met with one video of two that would serve as an overview of said games. These have been archived by YouTube users Todd-T and Copeland400. These videos start with Kirby speaking to the viewers, continue with him, or another guy, explaining how the games work, and end with the commercials we're familiar with. And yes, the same voice actress voiced Kirby in these videos. We have some promo videos for Kirby's Dream Course and Kirby's Dream Land 2 as well, but unfortunately, the voice actress didn't reprise her role. In 1994, Japan would be treated with the first official Kirby soundtrack. This soundtrack, fittingly named after the Japanese title of Kirby's Adventure, is rather interesting, as before the ripped tracks from the game, there are 8 vocal arrangements, 7 based on stage themes, and the last one based on the epilogue theme. And it's this track that has a duet with who sounds like a young child. Many speculate this to be Kirby, but it could just be wacky sounding backing vocals. Both assumptions make sense in my eyes. Around the same year we will be treated with a CD and a tie-in book to Kirby's Adventure. This CD will be called the Kirby Drama CD, and it's a 40-minute long listen of various skits involving Kirby doing activities outside of saving Dreamland. Some of these skits include Kirby playing football, going to the beach, talking to you on the phone, and playing cowboy. Hey, actually, the word is bakyun, a Japanese onomatopoeia for boom, the sounds that guns make. Kirby doesn't actually swear in this CD, and I apologize if that joke was too immature. Luckily, we do know who voiced the Pink Puff in this piece of media, and it's Taeko Kawata. The name may be familiar to Sonic fans, as she's been part of its voice acting cast in Japan for multiple decades, voicing Amy Ross since the release of Sonic Adventure. Spark of Fire has taken the task of translating the entire thing, and even finding out more about it. Did you know that some of those skits were drawn too? Well, now you do! Another interesting case would come out 1 year later, in the form of Mario Kirby Masterpiece Video, an educational VHS meant to teach Japanese kids kanji symbols. Both the Mario and Kirby characters get their own short story, Mario's being a retelling of Super Mario Land 2, but replacing the coins with books, and Kirby's having to babysit a dog and save their mother from the evil King Dedede, only to find out he was actually helping the puppy's mother recover. And this time, it's Mayumi Tanaka who voices the Pink Puffball, adding another one-time voice actress. Going back to 1994, we get instances of Kirby speaking in the games as well. Actually, only 2 where he has written dialogue, and they may not be what you think. Kirby's Dream Corps is an instance of that in the introduction story. What? The game has no intro inside the cartridge, I hear you say? Well, if you said this, you will be correct, but only if you were talking about the international releases. Because the 10 MB ROM of the Japanese version was converted to 8 in the US and European ones, don't ask me why, I'm no technician. A lot of interesting stuff had to be cut, like debug mode, test courses, and a fully animated intro. There's even an original track to accompany it. We got such wonderful lines from Kirby's mouth as, I wonder if I'll have another wonderful dream tonight, gazing up at the stars. Huh? And what? The international releases opted for a boring retelling of the story in the manual, changing it from Kirby's perspective to the townsfolk's, and addressing it takes place after the events of Kirby's adventure. Another case of Kirby speaking full sentences in his games is the Super Nintendo remake of Kirby Star Stacker, also known as Kirby no Kiwa Kiwa Kitsu. Here Kirby teaches you how to play the game, although you can't understand it because Nintendo never localized this game, even releasing it in its original language on the Nintendo Switch Online service. So much for that. As we get closer to the late 90s, things seem to be going more straightforward. Masahiro Sakurai voices him doing his iconic yell as Mike Kirby in Kirby's Fun Pack, and we get a definitive voice actress for the Pink Puffball starting in Super Smash Bros. And Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. So alright, Kirby's talked a lot in the 90s, and he's entering a new millennium as Makiko Moto joins the party. What's next? Oh no! Chapter 2, the Y2K, aka the anime. So picture this. You've had many instances of your creation speaking full sentences, finally giving them a proper voice, and the franchise therein is still struggling outside your homeland. So what's the best way to introduce new fans to it? Making an animated series, of course. But how do you manage to make a cartoon with its own continuity and differences from the games, while keeping their speech intact? You don't! Yeah, I'm sure it's no secret now that as a supervisor of the show, Masahiro Sakurai had a few strict guidelines the producers had to follow, such as banning the usage of humans, and most importantly, how Kirby shouldn't speak. In an interview with director Soji Yoshikawa, he would comment on how it was a challenge to work with a character who doesn't speak a proper language. I'm currently struggling with how to make the most of a character who does not speak, but there can be a certain charm in silent characters. Snoopy is like that. So that's what we were desperately seeking out. Specifically, I'm most concerned with how to make Kirby stand out as a character. In complex stories, Kirby tends to not be at the center, because he doesn't have any lines. So I'm very conscious of creating a sense of presence for Kirby as a main character, starting from the script writing phase. And looking at most of the episodes, yeah, you can see how Kirby barely has any relevance. He's mostly just thief and tough pet, or baby brother, until a monster shows up and then he's capable of defending himself and the others around him. Not to say there aren't episodes where Kirby stands out. Off the top of my head, the 3 Pet episodes, the Fan episode, Frog Wild and Delivery Dilemma are decent examples, though they vary in quality. But otherwise, Kirby is sorta just there. I don't blame those who argue that this anime is more of a DDD and Thief show than a Kirby show. And as for the Snoopy comparison, I don't know, isn't the point of Snoopy that he steals his own character? Kirby not being able to speak full sentences is interesting, because there are some clips from the show that kind of disprove that concept. Remember this for later. Chapter 3. It's a post-Kirby world. As the anime aired, consequently gained a cult following in Japan, and got many people to meet the franchise, you'd think that the games would follow suit, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The game released during the years the episodes of the anime would air on television would feature a surprise for those people. When pausing Kirby's Adventure and many other mainline games, you'd get flavor text describing the copy ability you're using at any given moment. The remake of Kirby's Adventure, you know, the one promoted with the anime models in the commercial, with artwork from the anime in the box art, has the copy abilities flavor text be read by Kirby himself. In every version, you could already read his thoughts with the sleep ability in the original, something that is still present, but now that would happen with every ability, from fire to sword to spark, and all the abilities in between. This happens in both the GBA games, as well as mouse attack. The mangas would obviously continue to make Kirby speak, as they were their own continuity to begin with, they could do whatever they wanted. And so would the light novels started in 2013 by Mie Takase. The most interesting cases are the two Kirby games that predate Adventure Wii, Kirby's Epic Yarn and Kirby Mass Attack, because it's these two games who had both Kirby using his pro language in-game while having some sentences in the cutscenes. This grass feels funny, it feels like trousers is a super iconic line, but did you know about too bad there aren't any tomatoes up here? The most interesting line Kirby ever said in a game is the one in Mass Attack. After being silent throughout the entire game, as he looks at the sky, he comes to realize something. Darkness has its place just as much as light. That's a pretty mature thought for a young kid. The games directed by Kumazaki, unfortunately, don't seem to have any full sentence spoken by the Pink Wonder, and the It's Kirby Time books haven't tried doing that either, although it takes the silent protagonist approach, so it doesn't necessarily prove or disprove any of those aforementioned instances. There are clearly good, even great examples of Kirby being able to speak just fine. So what happened? Chapter 4. The other side of the debacle. Alright, so clearly there are many instances, old and new, that show Kirby speaking full sentences. He can really talk. We can all go home now. Right? Not yet. Because there's another thing I wanted to talk about. The fandom's opinion on the matter. Because there can't be a Kirby video made by me without mentioning or talking about the fandom once. Remember the DExus video I talked about at the beginning? Well, that got a response from my channel, I'll not mention by name to avoid harassment, who tried debunking the idea in a funny way. They're using the anime to prove that the Kirby from the games can talk, as if they're the same continuity. They go on to acknowledge the flavor text in the flagship titles, but argue that it could just be another character. What's their source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
They also went about how Kirby saying the word mom in one sleep post-screen description means that Kirby is a species, that there could be female puffballs, and Kirby is canonically non-binary. Let me put myself in their shoes and use one of their arguments back for a second. If the copy abilities flavor text post screens from the flagship titles could be from the perspective of someone other than Kirby, and that is a big if. Who is to say that this mom Kirby is talking about isn't some female character being seen as a motherly figure by him? Who's saying that Adeline of Choo Choo isn't that motherly figure, or a female character we don't see in the games? I know this argument is nuts, but so is saying that the copy abilities flavor text post screens where Kirby is speaking aren't Kirby's words. It could also be, you know, Kirby just saying the word. dreaming of having a proper mother. The word doesn't mean anything major or considerable. Yes, they could just be thoughts and thinking isn't the same as speaking. But it's kinda hard to believe that the same guy who had a thought-provoking thought can't form a proper sentence. Also, Kumazaki adding stuff from the anime means he wants to make the anime and games more connected to each other, and apparently Kirby being related to Void proves that Kirby can't talk. Screw me, I suppose. It honestly looks like this person is desperate for counter-arguments to disprove the arguments or leave it up to interpretation, and so they look too deeply into some post-screens and interviews. Shockingly, being a Kirby's Void believer doesn't make things any better, but ridiculous as it may be, this take is the one that most Kirby fans hold, the one that Kirby can speak and shouldn't speak. Imagine Kirby talking in full sentences. I don't have to. In fact, they're really protective of this vision. So much so that any video that has Kirby speaking is flooded with comments that go, "Ew, no, this is cursed," or people spitting out some super morbid canons that when Kirby talks, get ready, he's using the teeth from other creatures he just devoured. What the heck? Friendly reminder that these are the same people who will defend power scaling debates, and really any new Kirby fan work that portrays him as a bad guy, by saying that you're looking too deep. Yet here they are, looking too deeply at the fact that Kirby has teeth for a few seconds. I wonder how those people would feel if they watched the Creative World's flash animations about this franchise. Kirby shows his teeth constantly. Does that mean he killed? No. Be real for a second. How would you prove that? And all of these ideas, all these beliefs that Kirby is better off just saying Poyo, can be traced back to a little Kirby spin-off released in the 90s. That being Kirby's Avalanche / Ghost Trap. I've ignored this game for the majority of the video purely because of one thing. It is not an unoriginal Kirby spin-off. It's a risking of Super Puyo Puyo, a franchise that, just like Panel Depon, Nintendo wasn't comfortable with releasing in the West at the time. So they took the game, slapped Kirby characters on it, and called it a day. It's this game that invented the depiction many call Jack Kirby, and is the reason why many people like to be annoying and pretend that this is the only game where Kirby talks. I legit saw people using Kirby speaking perfect English as one of the biggest reasons why this game is bad, or mediocre at best, as if Kirby talking in and of itself is the problem, not, I don't know, the characterization. It drives me up a wall how people make how many times did silent characters talk videos, and then show this game as the only instance of Kirby talking, when there is multiple official Kirby material, including games, where he talks, and he isn't a jackass. It's not canon. It may have been made by a Japanese game developing team, but it was never released in Japan. No Japanese gamer in the 90s knew what a Kirby's Ghost Trap is. It's always been obvious from the start that Kirby could speak. Maybe not always perfect English, but still English. He could do that. He still does that in a lot of non-canon material after all. How the heck could D talk to Nova and grant a wish, if all he could say was the Spanish word for chicken and the Japanese word for yes then? I've heard a few people claim that Nova could easily translate this baby talk as their comment, but they have no evidence for that, because this take is purely their heart speaking, not their brain. I mean, okay, let's zoom off the idea for a moment. Are there instances that prove that he only says Poyo? A few, yeah, if you dig deep enough. There are, 3, but even in these 3 instances, there is an asterisk attached to them. Rainbow Paintbrush and Battle Royale have Kirby saying Poyo a few times, but unfortunately, the former game doesn't really do it in a manner where it shatters the thesis that he can speak normally, and the latter game is arguably as canon as Kirby's Ghost Trap, because of how Diddy behaves in this game. and how the game generally is. Also, Mass Attack is definitely canon, given how the game developers of Deluxe said in a Miiverse post that the Sansons exist because of someone who hates light. That someone being Necrodus, the main villain. The puffball being unable to speak fluently doesn't seem to be the case in the anime either sometimes. Both the original and the English dub have instances of Kirby saying words that aren't just names of unintelligible noises. Mostly the original Japanese version. And if you think him saying words in his head is not enough, there are multiple times where he actually says multiple unique words, moving his mouth. There's a 5-minute video that has put together all the instances where Kirby talks, or tries to, that I link in the description. Heck, from episode 84 onward, Kirby starts saying at least 1 or 2 words per episode, adding Poyo in it, sure, but the show does give the impression that one day Kirby will talk fluently. So even if you're one of the 2 people who unironically believe that the anime is canon to the games, your Kirby can talk idea is still up to debate. And with all of that out, what's left? The anniversary concerts? Okay, I gotta make something clear. I don't want to look like I'm stomping on anybody's feet with this video. My point isn't to say that the interpretation of Kirby only saying Poyo is wrong, and those who worship it are idiots. My point is to show that there is a high chance Kirby can talk normally. He just never does because he usually doesn't have to. I don't want to look like I'm right. But people from the other side do. They always try to be objective about how Kirby can speak this, why Termina and Kirby are related that. And then, when you say that isn't the case, other people lecture you about how neither case is confirmed, stop being a jerk. And I feel those people misunderstand us when we're talking about these topics. We're not acting like we know the games more than the developers. We're just saying what's more likely based on evidence, an hypothesis based on said evidence. And in my opinion, this argument doesn't make sense. The evidence paints a different picture than what many younger fans want you to believe. Then there's the issue of making Kirby talk in fan words, which I never understood. In a virtual world where the only limit is the sky, people feel uncomfortable doing something that they think the developers wouldn't do. And combined with that time when Polygon interviewed Kumatsaki to ask him what happens to Kirby's enemies when they get swallowed, that's some very asinine stuff. Kirby is a kids series. Did you honestly believe for a second that the puffball commits bloody murder in games made for kids? Even without the interview, there is already evidence that no one dies in the Kirby series.
It's fun, it's safe, no one dies.
No one dies. This is a commercial for Kirby's Epic Yarn. It's official. People saw it. Either way, my point is that you don't need Daddy Sakurai or Papa Kumatsaki to lecture you on what is fair game and what isn't in your own projects. Again, this was fine in the 2000s and early to mid 2010s. People were okay with making Kirby speak imperfect Kirby or Ball in the Family, even in fanworks based on the anime. What happened? Now we have him just being a toddler. Especially in the fan media based on material where Kirby is canonically not a baby. Even in material where it doesn't make sense for him not to speak. In Nintendo High he's supposed to be a teenager, yet he talks and interacts with the cast as if he was a baby. And people freak out the rare time where he says a full sentence, as if that's a crime. Like, oh no, Kirby said the word mayonnaise, it's so over. I will admit it's funny to see people walk into conversations about how mismanaged his role in the anime is, and say that there is stuff on the internet that doesn't have him talk, and still manages to give him a good personality. For example, the Kirby vs DDD saga, even going as far as to argue that it's not a Deus Ex Machina at all there.
Oh beans.
And then there's videos and webcomics that have Kirby talk. However, they explain why he's able to speak now and then supposedly never again. Yeah, really. Two examples immediately stood out to me. For one, the lawsuit arc at Kirby, the judge portrayal of course, not the regular one, speak full sentences in the last two chapters. I just want to say shout out to Ellie Nelson for giving one of the best Kirby voice impressions. It was great, and perhaps the biggest highlight in the arc. The portrayal downright feels like how Kirby would act in an official piece of media if he had such a job. It's cool. But then, the second the rep ends, we get this reveal that Shigeru Miyamoto was inside Kirby's body, and that's why he could speak. Why would you do that? You could have just implied he could speak like this naturally. I mean, he spoke just fine in the Kirby Star Allies parody 4 years prior. It's like the people behind this web series were trying to appeal to both parts of the fandom. They wanted to say, look, we made Kirby talk, while giving a flimsy justification for why they did later, and I think it only ended up satisfying no one. You can't have a character talk for a long time and then justify it by saying, well actually this guy was inside their body the whole time, so that's why they could do that. It doesn't work, plain and simple. Either you appeal to one side or the other. How did that happen anyway? Did Miyamoto willingly enter the puffball's stomach and then leave when he thought it was okay to? And I know that this is a comedy web series, but this arc genuinely wants to be taken seriously. So I blame the arc for making me think about what actually happened with these two. The Halloween themed strips from the Kirby Crew webcomic are a special kind of evil, because of what it says about having the pink puff speaking full sentences, intentionally or not. Bendy and Co all get ready to put their costumes on, but then they notice how Kirby is not around them. So Bendy goes to check him in his room, and sees him covered in shadows. Suddenly the puffball starts asking how or why he still trusts him. What with how he's all powerful, and could devour him whole at any moment. He becomes his evil self, and chases him with the king, and Meta Knight being possessed too. Okay, to be fair, it was a story told by Marx, but jeez, calm down the Kirby Crew. These strips say out loud, oh, you like Kirby speaking full sentences? Well, guess what, if he did then his true intentions would be fully exposed, so you better start hating it too. Let's be charitable. I don't think that was the comic illustrator's intent. I don't think the intention was to do this, but seeing the way the characters talk and interact, and the way they end with this cliffhanger, you know what it's like? It's like if you took the Legion arc from Ball in the Family and made it 10 times more cheesy and messed up. So, why are people against the idea of Kirby speaking? Is this some kind of propaganda about how this concept is objectively wrong? I wouldn't say so. I think it just has to do with people not being used to this portrayal. Even outside of Kirby being able to talk or not, how he should talk or not, people inside and outside the fandom have some very strong views on certain portrayals. Whenever a post about who should voice who in a new Kirby show movie appears, fans will usually answer with how DDD should be voiced by Ted Lewis, or how Meta Knight should be voiced by Eric Stewart. They're the only correct portrayals, when really what they mean is that they're the portrayals they're attached to the most. And that's fair. I'd lie if I said I wasn't in their same position. I grew up during the meta era of the Sonic series, so I'm pretty attached to Roger Craig Smith's voice for Sonic the Hedgehog. Jason Griffith may be the better portrayal, but Rogers is my favorite. Outside of Frontiers anyway. When you love a certain depiction of a character, it's easy to get all panicky about the idea of it being replaced by another. But here's something Kirby fans need to hear, even if they don't want to. No matter how much you like a certain voice actor, they're always going to be replaced eventually. Whether it be because of a choice made by executives, or due to age. Ted Lewis and Eric Stewart are over 50 years old at the time of writing, and haven't been voicing their characters for over a decade. Can they still do the voices? There are quite a lot of instances of how portrayals of former or current voice actors for certain characters are completely different now versus how they started. Ryan Smith's voice for Sonic is significantly higher pitched now than it was in the Adventure days.
Hey Iowa, this is Sonic the Hedgehog. Alright!
Likewise, Marge Simpson and SpongeBob sound significantly different, because it's hard to do these same voices for 10 plus seasons of television. Tom Kenny literally cannot do SpongeBob's iconic laugh anymore. The current one is virtually unrecognizable from the one from the golden era of post-movie seasons.
Oh, the grill is gone.
I understand the idea of celebrities scaring you. I mean, why have The Rock voice DDD when we already have the perfect voice actor for him? I'm not even arguing that celebrities voicing video game characters is a good idea on paper. My point is that the people you know and love one day won't be there to do their job anymore, either because they won't be capable of doing that anymore, or because they'll die, and we need to be welcoming of new possible portrayals, instead of bashing them, because they're not what we grew up or are comfortable with. I remember back in 2021 and 2022, when many were against the idea of having Jack Black voice Bowser and Keanu Reeves to voice Shadow, with some even longing for Griffith to voice the ultimate life form, out of respecting the voice talents. Fast forward to today, and I don't think I've seen anybody rant about their roles in the movies, except for, you know, Matt
He
Welch.
has no talent.
In fact, the general consensus on the Super Mario Bros. Movie and Sonic 3 is that even if they're not that good, Jack Black and Keanu Reeves are the best parts of the movies. We could be getting that with DDD, or Meta Knight, or whatever, being voiced by a celebrity or a small actor, and that could be the best portrayal of a Kirby character we've seen in years. And we could be missing out if we just tell people behind this hypothetical media to just give us what we're used to. Let's be skeptical of new guys or girls voicing our favorite characters, but not to the point where we argue they're disrespecting the old ones. As smart people would say, don't knock it till you try it. This argument could be made for any franchise really. I'm only talking about it in correlation to the Kirby fandom because it's extremely relevant there. I guess the bottom line of this video is, give Kirby speaking full sentences a chance. Even if you already gave that a chance, give it a second chance. Go check out the links in the description, read these comics and manuals, or listen to the drama CD and ask yourself if you like these portrayals or not. Either way, it's completely fine to me. Just please, don't act like it's objectively bad. I don't know how to end this video. Subscribe for more rants about parts of the Kirby fandom or something. I swear this will be the last one.